Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. This week over at the Funkie Junkie Inspiration Avenue, we are going to be creating to the theme of by the numbers. This has been so much fun. I've gone through my stash to find all of the different number-related things that I can create with. So if you'd like to see exactly which materials I'm going to be using for this by the numbers project, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today for our card, we're going to be using a substrate of a mixed media tag, and we're going to be pulling some Distress Oxide Abandoned Coral, Distress Spray Stain, Mustard Seed, and some saltwater taffy. These are going to help us form our background along with a dash of vintage photo. So, today we are working on top of the Tim Holtz Mixed Media Mat, and of course we need to bring in our Distress Sprayer. So, we'll give this a good spritz, and then we can start laying down our colors. So I'm going to start with a dash of mustard seed. We're just going to put a couple spritzes on there. Then we're going to be going in with some of the saltwater taffy. I'm getting fall vibes from this already. Then we're going to go in with a dash of vintage photo. And then we're going to give our oxide a good shake, and we're going to add a splash of abandoned coral. Oh, that is mixing nicely already. Okay, so we're going to give this a couple of spritzes so that we can move around the distressing. Now, let's put the rest on fast forward. And here is our finished background. We even had enough to make a second tag. That's going to be great to die cut some leaves out of later. Now, back to our background. So, for this next step, I'm going to be pulling in some of the Tim Holtz Distress Grit Paste Translucent. This is going to give us some fantastic texture, and I'm also going to be putting this through one of the number stencils. And after, we will be adding some of the new Tim Holtz glazes over the top, and this will give our background some extra color and texture. The stencil that we're using is THS 056. So just with a palette knife, we're going to take some of the texture paste and we're going to press that through the stencil, kind of going on about the consistency of frosting. So just want to give a good scrape and make sure that everything is nice and even. Then we'll just lift this up, and I'm going to make one more dash of numbers down here in the corner. So take the remaining texture paste on the palette knife and smoosh that through. Okay, that should be pretty good. Now, of course, it's very important to wash our stencil afterwards, and I've got a container of water off to the side that I'm going to drop the stencil into, because otherwise we get textured stencil quite permanently if we don't get off that extra medium. Okay, so cleaning up the edges of the tags, scraping the extra back into the jar. There we go. Now we're going to start pulling in our glazes. For our first glaze, I'm going to be using a dash of squeezed lemonade. I love this bright, cheerful yellow, and it adds a nice little pack of punch to a tag. Then we have some seedless preserves, a nice bright purple. Then we're going to be pulling in some peacock feathers, definitely another favorite in the jewel tone family. Very good. And I also want a splash of not salty ocean. This is Mermaid Lagoon. Mermaid Lagoon is definitely one of my favorite colors, and that will make a nice blend with the peacock feathers. So just with my fingers, I'm going to be taking little pinches of the Distress Glaze powder and sprinkling it over the areas that have the texture paste on it. So we're just going to kind of do like finger painting on top of the tag, but with glazes. So we're just going to take pinches here and there, and we'll just keep adding color until we have all of those spots covered. Okay. I really enjoy this. It's really fun, and it's so neat just seeing all of the different colors blend together. I absolutely love these new colors, and they're going to make a great addition for creating all year round. All right, a little bit more over here, a little more there. That is looking really good, and I think we might need to just wipe off the edge of that jar. Okay, so now I'm just going to tap on the back of my fingers, and this is just going to move the powder around so that I can make sure that I've got great coverage everywhere. If there's any white spots, we can always go back and add more powder before we start letting this dry. And here we go. We do have a couple of low spots to cover up. All right. That is good. I am loving the blend on this. So we're just dusting off a few stray particles, but for the most part, that looks good. Though a little bit of touch up, I think. Okay. So the next thing I'll do will be to set this tag aside, and it's going to need some time to dry. Now, drying time is going to vary depending on which part of the country you're in. So let's go ahead and set this aside for about 20 minutes. Now we're pulling in the embossing folder 3D by Sizzix numbered, and this is going to help fit our number theme for this week's Funkie Junkie Inspiration Avenue. Now for embossing, I have decided to use a piece of mixed media cardstock, and as you can see, the detail on this is absolutely fantastic. So for this, I decided to do a quick alteration with a bit of chipped sapphire and iron gate. So we'll just go ahead and spritz this with some water, and then we will add some color. So we're going to go in with the chipped sapphire first. Nice solid background, and then we'll give the Distress Mica Spray Stain Iron Gate a good shake, and then we can add some Mica Magic. Alright, so some of these are a little bit more stubborn than others to shake up, but if we check the bottom, we can make sure that the sediment is fully incorporated. Alright, ooh, that is a nice metallic, and I like how that pairs with the chipped sapphire. Excellent. So we'll just dry this off, and here we are, all nice and dry. Now let's bring out some of the texture in the numbers. And to do that, I'm going to be pulling in some Distress Walnut Stain ink along with a blending brush. So we're going to take the ink and we're going to ink up the blending brush, and we're going to be highlighting the numbers and the details to make everything pop just a little bit more. And it will give us a lovely grungy effect at the same time. So I'm keeping the brush on a pretty low profile so that the bristles are more compact together, and that allows me to transfer the ink a bit quicker. I'm not really going for a soft look, I'm kind of going for an industrial look. Alright, so we're just rubbing that on, and as you can see, the numbers are already becoming more prominent in this background. Alright. That is looking good. Okay, so we're going to set those aside and move on to our next step. Let's go ahead and check in on our background. So this is looking pretty dry, so that means it is time to emboss. Here are the embossed results, and doesn't that look like shattered glass? I love it. It's got this really neat glassy effect to it. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to take our tag and we're going to trim it down, because this is going to be a layered background. This is going to go over the numbers that we created earlier with the embossing folder. Okay, so we've got that trimmed. We're going to take a look here, make sure our measurements are good. Oh, looks like I need to pull back in the tonic trimmer, and this is the mini trimmer, and we'll just take another small slice off that. Perfect. Nice and convenient for size and easy to keep on hand at the craft table. Okay, our layers are looking pretty good, so next it's time to figure out which pieces of ephemera are going to work well with these backgrounds. So I've got a little stash that I had set aside, so we're just going to pull some elements from here and see what works. I always find that this is the fun part, having a little stack of ephemera and then just trying to place pieces and see which things are going to coordinate, which things are not. It's quite the arty adventure. So flowers, oh, love to do that, but that is going to cover up too many of the numbers. So we'll go ahead and try a different piece. The frame, I like it, but I think the florals are going to contrast too much and the frame is too light. So maybe not the frame this time. Maybe I should think smaller and try some of the other bits of ephemera. Ooh, okay. That could work. That'll get me a little bit of lettering in there. And what else could we use? The stamps? Maybe not. Let's see. Yes, that red matches beautifully on there. That'll be good. Okay, that should give me a pretty good place to start. So next I'm going to grab some foam squares and we're going to attach the background to our foundation. So we're just going to take the foam squares and we're going to stick them on the back, and this will also give our card a little bit of dimensional lift. So we'll just stick a few of these on the back, and then we will peel off the backings and layer up our card. These foam squares are from Simon Says Stamp, and they are super useful for many crafty purposes. Okay, that's pretty good. So we're just flipping that over and sticking it down. Excellent. So now that we have our foundational pieces in place, we can start pulling in more of the ephemera. We've already decided on a couple pieces, so I'll go ahead and glue those down right now. And of course, we are using Collage Medium as our primary adhesive. So we'll just scribble a little bit on the back of this and stick it down. Okay, and we'll go ahead and pull in that other piece that we had, a little bit more glue. And we'll place that in the upper right corner. Good. So that is giving us a bit of embellishment for our background, and I think I would like a little bit more on here before we add our main focal point. Okay. Ooh, those flowers would be perfect. I'll have to trim them down, but that would make a great addition to our background. All right, let's stick on that Collage Medium and place those flowers. That is going to be perfect and give this kind of a late summer vibe. It was kind of looking very fallish, but with those flowers, now we're getting kind of a late summer feel. Perfect. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and bring in our main focal point. A while back, I had glazed a whole bunch of paper dolls, and this one I had added some squeezed lemonade to it. And now we're going to add a couple of the mini foam squares to the back so that this too has some lift on our card. Okay. To apply the glaze to the paper dolls, in this case I used one of the Tim Holtz embossing pens. That allows you to get into small areas to highlight details and to work your way around small twisty objects. There we go. That is making me pretty happy. I'm liking the card, and now we need a sentiment. For the sentiment, I'm pulling from the Everyday line of Tim Holtz Idea-ology, and this is one of the label stickers. I absolutely love the label stickers. There's just something about that font that makes it a perfect sentiment for practically any style of card. And the black background, well, what can I say? I like how the black makes the lettering pop. Okay, so just getting that all lined up, stuck down, and that is good. Now I want to work my way around the edges with some washi tape. And again, this is also from Idea-ology. But before we do that, we need to trim the leaves off the flower. So just going in with tonic snips and trimming off those extra pieces. Okay, I do find it a lot easier to flip the card over when I'm trimming things off so that I'm not worried so much about what I'm trimming. All right, almost there. There we go. And the flower is looking pretty well trimmed. Oh, looks like I have a little corner that I want to clean up a bit. Not a big deal. Just go back in and snip that off. Perfect. So next we're going to be going in with the washi tape. And to do this, I'm going to be pulling in the ATG gun. The washi tape, it's pretty good sticky, but I want to make sure on my card fronts that everything is very well stuck down. So we're going to run a line of the ATG tape before adding in the strips of washi tape around the border. And again, to tie into our numbers theme, I decided to use one of the washi tapes with numbers on it. So here is our finished card. And today we've been creating to the theme of by the numbers for the Funkie Junkie Inspiration Avenue. Here we've used number stencils and number washi tape, as well as a 3D Sizzix embossing folder with, well, more numbers. Our main focal point has featured one of the Tim Holtz paper dolls, along with some of the new Tim Holtz Distress glazes. My all-new time favorite has got to be squeezed lemonade. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Crafty Corner. And until next time, happy crafting!